Good morning, fellow journeyers. Wake up. Your soul needs you. This message today is going to be for all of my fellow brothers and sisters that are in recovery from alcoholism. If you are just beginning a program of recovery and maybe just beginning a program of AA, then this message is for you. When we begin AA, we start with reading the 12 steps. The first step states that we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. For most of us, this is a pretty easy first step. It's pretty easy for us to admit that our lives have become unmanageable. For me, I knew this for a long time while I was actively drinking. However, I did not know what I was going to do about it, or even if I had the ability to do anything about it. Step 2 states that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. But how do we turn our will and our lives over to something that we don't understand? In Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, The Shift, he talks about where we come from. He poses the question, where do we come from? And I think he states it very eloquently. So if you will bear with me for just a few pages, I would like to read what Dr. Wayne Dyer says about where do I come from. When I think of the events that occurred and the people that existed prior to my arrival on planet Earth in 1940, I'm intrigued by what determined my showing up at the precise time I did. Where was I before my conception in 1939? What was I doing during the 12th and 13th centuries while the Crusades were taking place? Where was I in 2500 BC when the pyramids were being constructed? What or where was I millions of years ago before human beings began appearing on this planet, while the dinosaurs were roaming the earth? Contemplating questions of this nature led me to study a fair amount of the science that explained how things come into form. While I am by no means an expert in this area, this is what I've learned. It is my understanding that quantum physics regards this act as scientifically unassailable. That is, at the tiniest subatomic level, particles themselves don't originate from a particle. This means that matter originates from something that is formless. Scientists call the formlessness that produces matter energy. This non-material energy produced the particle that became who I am today. I think of this as a shift from energy to form. And as you read this book, I invite you to consider the shifts that you've made to be who and where you are right now. I think of the tiny little speck of human protoplasm that was my very first particle of humanity as being part of some kind of a future pull that shifted into a fetus and then into a baby, a toddler, a little boy, an adolescent, a young man, a mature adult, a middle-ager, and a person who has been alive for almost 70 years. All of those shifts were inherent in that originating energy that materialized as a microscopic particle and became me. It's beyond my ability to fathom how such a miraculous unfolding could take place in the formation of who I am as a physical being. But I do believe that transpired independently of my ability to do much about it, other than simply observe my development. I am really and truly doing absolutely nothing. It seems truer to simply observe myself being lived by this all-creating energy that seems to do nothing and at the same time leaves nothing undone. So where did that tiny little microscopic dot that was my first experience as a particle come from? Remember that quantum physics tells us emphatically that particles do not come from particles. If we reduce that original particle to its subatomic status, it is smaller than chromosomes, atoms, electrons within the atom, and even the subatomic particles called quarks. Scientists have placed a quark the size of my origination point into a particle accelerator revved up to 250,000 miles per hour and collided it with another quark. The result? Nothing was there. It appears that nothing exists at the moment of the transition to something. Or as I enjoy saying, from nowhere to now here. All that exists in the world of form is pure formless energy, no particles. Modern physics confirms the metaphysics of Genesis, which tells us that everything came from God and it was all good. Similarly, the Tao Te Ching tells us that all beings originate in non-being. Thus, the question of where we come from is answered similarly by physics and metaphysics. They both conclude that we originated from something that has no form, no boundaries, no beginning, and no substance. We are all essentially spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. This is our essence. This is where we come from. So, if this is where we come from, and we don't understand it, and science can't explain it, then it must be a power that is greater than myself. If where I come from, I can't explain, I don't understand, and science can't prove, then it must be something greater than myself that brought me into existence. So this is where we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves is involved in our lives, that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. And then we go back again to number 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Now this is where the tricky part happens. This is where we have to make a decision about what is our will to do in our lives and what is God's will to do in our lives. I believe that God will do for me what I cannot do for myself, but God will not do for me what I can do for myself. So this is what I can do for myself. Today, I cannot drive to the liquor store, I cannot buy alcohol, and I cannot drink. How this is going to be accomplished and the rest of it, I'm going to have to surrender to God. So this is where I say, okay, God, I will not drive to the liquor store today. I will not buy alcohol, and I will not drink. The rest, however, is going to be up to you. And this is the beginnings of recovery. This is the beginnings of recognizing that there is something greater at play in the universe, an energy that created us and still resides within us. If an energy that was formless, that science cannot explain, that science cannot pinpoint as an atom or as a particle, if this energy is what forms me, then this energy is me. This energy is what is inside of me. It was inside of me when I was a baby. It was inside of me when I was a child, and it is still inside of me today. And I have the ability to access that energy inside of me and to use it for my greater good. And my greater good today in this moment is going to be to not drink. And I want to share this with you if you are on the beginnings of your path of recovery. I want to share this with you to help you to wrap your brain, wrap your mind around these first 3 steps in the 12-step program. When you can start to To understand this, when you can start to feel this energy inside of you that is bigger than you, but is also a part of you, then you do have the ability to access this energy for your greater good. And right now in your life, your greater good is to maintain sobriety. And you don't have to think about it in long terms. You don't have to think about, how am I going to stay sober tomorrow? How am I going to stay sober and not take a drink next weekend when the weekend comes? And I'm stressed out after the work week and I feel like going out and having fun or releasing energy or stress after a long week at work. I don't want you to think in terms like that. I just want you to know today that you have the ability, because of the energy that's inside of you, to use it to stay sober today. God will do for you what you cannot do for yourself, but God will not do for you what you can do for yourself, and you can stay sober today. And one of the miracles that begins to unfold as we continue working through the AA program, as we continue working through these 12 steps, one of the miracles that unfolds before us is time. Time is a miracle, and time is on our side. And every day that we stay sober accumulates to another day. And before we know it, those days have added up in a row over time that we have stayed sober every day. And one day we'll wake up and we will get to the point where we will realize that we have been sober for 100 days consecutively in a row. Or that we have, like myself, remained sober for almost 800 days every single day in a row. And then we've made an accomplishment. So I welcome you on your journey of recovery. And I want to say to you that it is possible, it is attainable, and you will reap the rewards of just doing the next right thing. I am living proof of this. I was an alcoholic for well over 20 years. I had admitted to myself that I was powerless over alcohol. My life had become unmanageable. I just didn't know what I was going to do about it. I just didn't know if I even had the ability to do anything about it. Through my reading, through my research, through some aha moments and some prayer and some revelations, I did come to believe in a power greater than myself. I see that power as an energy that formed myself, that formed all of humanity, and that formed everything in this world. That power is an energy that still resides inside of me. And I do have the ability to access that energy for my greater good. You also have the ability to access that energy inside of yourself for your greater good. Your greater good is to remain sober, and you absolutely have the ability to do that. Peace and namaste.